Good evening, everybody. Today is Tuesday, September 17th, and I'm going to call this meeting to order at 6:02 for our legislative session. Kirk, we go ahead and do a roll call.
Yep. Mr. Allett?
Present.
Ms. Bowers?
Present.
Ms. Daniels?
Here.
Ms. Green?
Present.
Mr. Madsen?
Here.
Mr. Majors?
Here.
Ms. Williams?
And unfortunately, Council President Williams is feeling under the weather, so she is not in attendance tonight. Go ahead and turn it over to invocation. Councilmember Madsen.
Yes, welcome back, everybody. I hope everybody had a lovely summer. This evening, we'd like you to keep your thoughts and prayers for President Williams. She's feeling a little bit under the weather, and we're hoping for a speedy recovery. So just a moment of silence for her as she goes through her recovery process. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Green.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Moving on to communications, we will have two reports today. The first report is from the Environmental Advisory Council, if you all want to come forward. And if you could, just each identify yourselves.
Christine Proctor, Chair.
Rafika Mohammed, EAC member.
Tanya Diroff, EAC Vice Chair.
And Christopher Nave, Sustainability Coordinator for the Citizens.
Great. Thank you guys for coming. And the show is yours.
So, as Council may be aware, for the past several months, the Environmental Advisory Council has been working with St. Gormans and Clarence with the Harrisburg Housing Authority on the Environmental Teen Corps program, which is largely funded out of the host fee for the city. We had a series of meetings with them about existing programming ideas to try to make some changes and improvements, and we actually were able to successfully bring in a lot of different programming partners and add a lot to the program this year compared to previous years. A lot of core aspects of the program, such as the kids going out and picking up trash in the streets, and a lot of the sort of life skills aspects remain intact, but we were able to add a lot, specifically focusing around environmental issues. So we were able to partner with the Department of Environmental Protection as well as DCNR. The kids were able to go and do nature walks through the Wildwood Park in the northern part of Harrisburg, as well as try to learn about stream ecology and life that's in place in Wildwood. And there were also sessions at the South Central Department, the building for DEP, on raptors in the city, urban wildlife such as the peregrine falcon nest that's at the top of the DEP building, the picture here. A lot of the kids like that part of it, as well as rain to drain as far as stormwater runoff. We also had a lot of urban community gardens involved this year where the kids went out and did a lot of work for a number of different organizations such as Tri-County Community Action. They also did some volunteer work at the Central Pennsylvania Food Bank, and a number of them received Safe Serve certification through the Central Pennsylvania Food Bank, which is something that was sponsored, so there was no cost to the city or to HHA for that. We also were able to get Chesapeake Bay Foundation to sponsor the kids to go out on a canoe trip through their Susquehanna Watershed Environmental Education Program. I believe I sent the video of that to all of the council members. There's a link here, but I won't try and play it right now. But that was one of the things that I think a lot of the kids this year had identified as one of the things they liked the most in terms of what was added to it. The point was not only to try to enjoy themselves a little bit, but also to try to learn about the watershed ecology, stormwater runoff issues that the city has that can affect the watershed and Chesapeake Bay watershed in the area.
And while we were really pleased with Mr. Mans and Mr. Watson in working with the Environmental Advisory Council, since this is the first time in about 6 years they've had us to kind of bounce ideas off of and to incorporate some of these activities. We did have a couple of areas of concern that we would like to try to address with the Harrisburg Housing Authority. And one of our primary concerns is there's still students in the program that are coming from outside of the city. And we want to make sure that we address that, and not only making sure that the participants are coming from the city, but we're really prioritizing students that are from the Housing Authority neighborhoods. And so we're going to look to try to address that in the coming years. And the other issue in trying to get some of these additional activities in is that we're starting the planning process a little later. So one of the things that we see a role that the Environmental Advisory Council could really serve is to start the planning process a little bit earlier so that we can be a little bit more organized and better leverage some of these community partners to improve the overall experience. And Mr. Nave mentioned that they got to spend some time in some community gardens, but there's also a lot of community groups out there doing some neighborhood cleanups and some beautification projects. We'd also try to leverage some partnerships with them to get the environmental team force students working along with them. But we want to use the Environmental Advisory Council as kind of a support to make sure that we can get those activities in there. One thing that we would like to do is kind of revisit the original proposal that was put forward to the council in putting together this program, and make sure that we get some verbiage in there that really stresses the importance of prioritizing students coming from the Housing Authority neighborhoods, and make sure that we tighten that wording. And we would also suggest maybe kind of revisiting the proposal, maybe on a 5-year cycle that gives us time to really put some of the things into place, and then kind of review how the program is going and to make changes and tweak as necessary.
One other aspect is that currently the program is set up for kids who are between 13 and 16 years old. And we were thinking that in the future we might try to develop a way to have some of the older kids who are 15 and 16 and possibly look at ways to maybe extend it to 17 and 18 to operate as a feeder into college or into careers. One of the organizations we spoke with was Keystone Builders as far as trade jobs, as a way to be able to move the kids through this program directly into either a job or a college after they graduate from high school.
Yeah, and really when they go through and they get experience, they also get exposure to the different skills that could lead to jobs, careers, whether that's going to a 2-year or 4-year school or going directly into trades training, but making sure that whatever activities we pick, that there are skills associated with those activities that those students get exposure to.
And finally, I just wanted to mention some of the things that we've been discussing in terms of next steps or areas of focus for the EAC going forward. Rafika had an idea that we thought was pretty good, which is try to develop a quarterly workshop focusing on a different sort of environmental activity that we could bring members of the community in and teach them, such as backyard composting, which is the first thing that Rafika had mentioned in that regard. So we'll probably be looking, trying to develop that in the last part of the year. Reviewing and updating our existing sustainable PA certification. We're currently certified at the silver level, but I think a lot of the work that's been done over the past year and a half could probably get us up to gold finally. Another thing is the sustainability plan for the city. So that's something that I've been looking at since I started here and trying to tackle, but to really be able to try to put something together that's comprehensive and actually addresses not only internal activity in terms of municipal government, but also trying to look at businesses and residents, that it's a little bit of a bigger thing than I originally had envisioned. And I've asked the council to try to work with me on putting together ideas and actually trying to develop that probably over the next 3 to 6 months. Also, just real quick, I don't know if I've ever mentioned it before, the recycling coordinator and myself have done a couple of recordings of a podcast on recycling and sustainability issues in the city. We haven't put it out because of issues. We're trying to post it on the website, but we've been working with the communications director, and that should be coming up pretty soon. So far we've done one talking about plastic bags and sustainability in general, another on the city's glass recycling program, and recently one with Howard Drayton, the city's enforcement officer for public works, on illegal dumping in the city and the new ordinance that was passed last year.
Very good. We'll take some questions from council to start down at my left. Councilmember Bowers.
Thank you. Thanks for being here tonight. Thank you for your recommendations for the Environmental Teen Corps. I'm hopeful that HHA will be receptive. I would say, I guess, out of your concerns, my biggest one was the students coming from other areas and the lack of focus on the children or young residents within the housing authority locations. I'm excited about the podcast and the hands-on programming. I think that would be awesome and a great way for not only our youth to get involved, but residents as well. So I think it's awesome the work that you guys are doing, and thank you again for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you for the hard work that you've done over the summer, even just putting this together. Looking forward, thank you for having that forward vision. I would love to work with you all as you start to plan for next year. I have some ideas and even some other resources that you might be able to connect to that might even be able to help with some of the funding. So we definitely need to talk. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for your service. This is great work. It's unfortunate because some of the pushback I get in the community sometimes is there's nothing for the kids to do. There clearly is stuff for the kids to do, right? So look forward to working with you on that communications. It's something I've seen with the Harrisburg Promise initiative that HAC offers. We have zero participation or very minimal from Harrisburg students. It's mostly Steelton students. So how can you call it the Harrisburg Promise initiative? There's no Harrisburg youth involved with it. So it's a common theme we're seeing in other programs. So hopefully we can coordinate on better communications throughout the city and our youth so that they can participate in these various programs.
I am going to ditto a lot of what was said already. Perhaps one of the things, the focus with the quarterly hands-on public programs, maybe we could do more with some of the trash pickup, particularly with maybe partnering with what was kind of the Tuesday, what is it? 2 Minute Tuesday. I don't know why it just left me in my brain. It's just been really resonating with me how much garbage still exists in the streets. And I see it more because I have a really good trash picker-upper in my dog, which means I'm taking everything out of his mouth. So I think the more we can probably do to promote that, and maybe there's some initiatives we can encourage people who are out walking, whether they're dog or just out themselves, to figure out ways to do that. So I think there's some initiatives maybe to increase receptacles in some key areas and walkways and thoroughfares throughout the city and things like that maybe we could look at. And maybe there's some recommendations you guys can make in regards to that. Thank you.
Right. Well, I guess it's not necessarily a question for you, but you may know the answer. So in terms of the Environmental Teen Corps, do we have percentages on how many are Harrisburg residents versus non-Harrisburg residents? Or that would be better asked of Harrisburg Housing?
So that would have to come from Harrisburg Housing Authority. But as a council, we would also be very interested in looking at those.
The recycling coordinator, myself and Rafika had gone and done a presentation on recycling and sustainability in the city to the kids. Based on asking for a show of hands, the vast majority were from Harrisburg,
Okay.
but not everyone in the room.
Okay. And then additionally, I know we have some folks that have connections to our local university here. Is there any discussions about partnerships with the EAC, Harrisburg University, and the Environmental Teen Corps? Because I know that there's some programs offered at
Yep.
HU that
This
could directly.
year, in years past, the Environmental Teen Corps had just used Harrisburg University as a place to meet. This year, we got them in, we got them tours, they got exposure to different programs, and we're looking to build on that in the coming years.
Okay.
And look to do that as well with HAC, and make sure that they're getting exposure to what opportunities there are for them.
Right, yeah, because there's a lot of great opportunities and affordable opportunities for Harrisburg residents, students at Harrisburg School District to attend HU, and we need to promote that more to, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I agree completely.
Yeah, absolutely. So, thank you for the work.
Thanks. Councilmember Daniels.
Yeah, thank you for the work. I'm glad to see like time frames and some vision of what you all are going to do. I'm really excited about that. And for your quarterly workshops, if you could do one on native plants for the residents, I think that would be awesome. That's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for the update. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, could you, I apologize. Could you just give a quick plug to folks about when EAC meetings are, since we have you here?
Good call.
Yeah.
They are the first Thursday of every month,
Okay.
and they're held at Public Works
At 6 p.m.
at 6 p.m.
At 6 p.m., 1820 Paxton Street. So just want to make sure people get that out there. So if there's folks that are interested, they can come and attend and give their feedback and insight onto how to help out the EAC. So thank you all.
Thank you. All right, additional communications coming directly from the mayor. I will yield the floor to you, Mayor.
Thank you. Good evening, council. It's good to see everyone. I understood we had I hope everyone had a nice break. And a couple quick things to communicate. Just building on the EAC presentation, among the long list of things on the agenda, we do have the final appointment recommended for Ms. Tamaya Green for the EAC, which will bring them up to full speed. And we also have on the agenda the final sort of technical amendments for our municipal waste code. So these are all positive things. I wanted to give council two updates. The first, very positive one with regard to economic development, which is that over the summer we have hired a replacement for the departed Charlie White in business development. And we have extended an offer, which has been accepted, but it has not been finalized for an economic development director. So I would like to introduce the team to you all, hopefully at the next meeting on October 8th. But I wanted to give you news that we were moving because I know what a priority that was. We did an extensive job search, multiple interviews, and I feel that we've settled on a really great team. They complement each other well, and if it's all right, we'll put them under communications for October. And then I wanted to give an update on stop signs. I missed that meeting while I was at the beach. So definitely had a chance to watch and listen to residents' concerns, and wanted to sort of chart a way forward. My understanding, having spoken to the solicitor, is that when the project is completed, the traffic control map will come to council for your final approval, at which time you will ultimately be able to make the final decision on whether stop signs stay or go. In the meantime, as the project is going, and we don't want to send mixed messages, I'm going to make the recommendation that we keep the stop signs at Emerald and Kelker, and that we eliminate the stop signs at Harris and Boyd. And at each of those intersections, I'm going to further recommend that we make some additional improvements, and we can see how these play out over the course of the next couple months. So at Boyd, we're looking for a new signage, but most importantly, thermoplastic yield sign. So it's going to switch from a stop to a yield, and then it's already a raised crosswalk there. The thermoplastic yield signs will be sort of very hard to miss lines that will also have speed table markings on them. So it's going to be much different than what is currently there now, and we already purchased them in their parts of the development, so we will put them in and you can see, but it's going to be good. And then at Harris Street, in addition to the shrinking, we're going to permanently put in a pedestrian crossing yield sign on a banana base in between the two bump outs, which is basically something that looks like this. Sorry about that. It's actually already there, but right now it's there confusingly along with a stop sign. And so we will put that in and make that a permanent addition where the crosswalk is. And again, ultimately, council will have the final decision on whether or not that is the right choice. But for the short term, while we're completing the project, that is what I'm going to recommend to the engineer to do. And that's in response to what I thought was very appropriate and good commentary from the public. And that's all I have to communicate at this time.
The traffic mapping would come down as an ordinance, is that correct?
Yes.
And the timing of that, would that be dealing with the 3rd Street corridor specifically, or is it more of a citywide? I mean, how are you looking at that by way of a piece of legislation?
The way at least I'm envisioning it, I don't think there's one way to do it. is when the council votes when there's a change in the traffic control maps.
Right.
Basically,
So-
like you do for a zoning map as
So
well.
I would think that would be kind of at a completion of any project.
Of a major project like this. So the 3rd Street project, as you know, has been underway for quite some time. I think the originally was envisioned for a much shorter completion. So it is taking longer than you normally would to change a map, but that's not really any particular fault. That's just the project. And has it developed, there's been a lot of engineers involved in this, a lot of cooperation with CRW, and that has resulted in these traffic calming figures that have been put into the streets as part of this. So the engineer would come back with a recommendation. It would be an engineer recommendation for what the change to the existing map is. You may be shocked to learn that perhaps the city didn't always vote on all the traffic control map changes. Some of them just happened, where if they voted, we're not really finding when that happened or how that happened. So it's a cleanup technical thing as much as anything, but it is ultimately the elected officials who make a determination based on the consultation with the engineers for what's the most safe features out there for the public. So you'll get an informed set of opinions that come with that as to why one choice versus another. So.
I could just add one update on 3rd Street because it made me think of it. So originally the project was going to conclude this year. We are extending into next year for 2 very exciting reasons. One, HU requested that we not finish paving the street right as they're bringing in all of their heavy equipment for the construction of the new tower, which makes a lot of sense to postpone that. And 2, we were fortunate also over the summer, we received the electrical vehicle charging grant that we had hoped to receive to have new charging stations put, and this is going to be along the section near the State Museum. So that section then is going to have parking changed to angled parking with new charging stations. The legislature is very exciting. It was the grant's been received, but that portion will not be done until next year. So the conclusion of the project will really be south of Foster Street and go into next spring.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good. I will
Okay.
open up to questions.
Yeah, so I got a few now. Okay, so now you're stating that the completion of the project will trigger the control map ordinance. So estimated time of completion, you said into 2020. Do we have a date, a month? This program, I guess we were estimated to have completion on the project in October of 2019. Do we, with this extension, what is the estimated potential concluding date on the 3rd Street project?
Is Wayne here? No. So I'm going to guess.
So, yeah.
If you don't want me to guess, I won't.
Well, no, I mean,
I
so
believe it will stretch at
construction-
least into the summer of
Yeah, I was
next
going to say,
year.
it's going to have to.
Because of the two features that I'm mentioning, those are the only things that are being pushed into next year. It is the section near Harrisburg University and the new section near the State Museum.
Okay. So then for the remainder, so north of Forster Street,
Will be paved and completed this year.
October? Are we still at an October timeframe,
Also, Wayne,
2019?
I believe they are talking about, they have a schedule which starts next week. We'll mill most likely in the evenings, and we'll stretch into early October, yes, but it's going to begin very soon. They're ready to do the final stages. They will be completed this year, so it will be completely paved. That section that we're talking about, basically from Riley all the way to Foster Street, by some point in October.
Okay, all right. Because I know a lot of our residents on 3rd Street have a lot of concerns and, well, just want to know when life can return to normal, so we still have some comfort there. I'm trying to think if there's any other questions right now. No, I think, so we won't see anything. So I guess, long story short, the traffic control things will stay in place until at least the summer of 2020.
Well, I'm going to recommend we keep the stop signs.
Right, the stop sign at Kelker Emerald, as you suggested. Stop sign at Kelker and Emerald.
I'm going to recommend changes at Harrison Boyd, which will go into effect right away as part of this project, and we'll be able to sort of test them out a little bit and see if it works with the desired traffic calming. And then next year, you will get to vote on the final map, and you can make the final decision. It's your call whether they are kept or not kept.
Okay, so I guess I'm open to see how that's going to work I agree with Boyd. I think Boyd with the raised intersection, it's already lit up pretty well. Concern at Harris Street because there's the senior living right there at that corner. So I guess we'll have to see how that plays out over the fall and winter. But outside of that, I don't have anything else.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Daniels?
Yeah, just how are we going to communicate this to the constituents, just so that they're aware and they can ask questions?
Okay, well, starting tonight, communicating that the stop signs will stay at Emerald and Kelker. If you have suggestions on how best to spread that message beyond our communications team and a press release and maybe a news article on tonight in the council meeting, I am open. So if we can talk on how to do that. And then I will also put in our release examples of the markings and the things and the changes that are happening at Harris and Boyd. And again, you'll have the final say, and this is just a recommendation for how to proceed in the short term based on the feedback that we've received.
Because with the stop signs triggered a whole bunch of other conversations around the bump outs, why we have those in the first place, aren't they supposed to calm traffic? So I think it'd be good if we did we upticked our community engagement in terms of explaining.
All right, well, I will say, if you would like to, I'm totally open, and I think Wayne would be too, to provide an update on the entire 3rd Street project via the Community Economic Development Committee of City Council, and we could schedule that for an appropriate time, and we could bring people out to have that larger conversation, maybe before the completion and after we've had a chance to sort of see how these changes play out a little bit, whatever you think.
Okay.
But we're certainly open to having, scheduling and advertising a time where people can come out and talk about just that topic.
Okay, yep, we'll have an offline conversation about how to do that. Thank you.
Councilmember Green?
I don't have any questions at this time. Thank you.
I don't have any questions, but I did want to follow up regarding Councilman Mattson's concerns with communications to residents. I believe that the residents should be given the same courtesy that the 2nd Street project receives. So whether that's 2 meetings, 3 meetings, whatever that looks like, I think that this deserves that same discussion. So thank you.
Yeah, I would just concur, and it might be good to have that in 2 meetings, maybe at either end of 3rd Street in the Midtown community, just right there.
Not only will we participate, but we will work with Councilman Madsen if that is appropriate to schedule it.
All right, perfect. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Moving on to courtesy of the floor, I'm going to open up the microphone. Please be sure to identify yourself and your address, and we'll start to my right if you guys want to approach the microphone. Anyone to the right?
Good evening. My name is Melanie Cook. I'm a resident of the city of Harrisburg. I live on North 3rd Street, not in the area impacted by the proposed sign removals. I do thank council and the administration for listening to the comments that were very pointed at a meeting a couple of weeks ago regarding the removal. But I'm not sure, am I hearing that 2 signs are going to be removed, the ones at Harris and Boyd Alley, again, without council having reviewed and made a determination or the residents being notified that the signs are being removed? It seems that we're kind of splitting the baby here. My primary concern, certainly safety at Emerald and Kelker, were seemingly glaringly obvious that was a very poor decision to remove those 2 signs. And the other 2 streets, while the traffic is not as busy, there has not, to the best of my knowledge, been any opportunity for people who live in and around those particular intersections to weigh in with their position. And it is a senior citizen high-rise that is located at one of those locations. And I would just ask that any decision to remove a sign come before council after residents have had ample opportunity to present their concerns and be voted upon as a matter of public record, as opposed to a recommendation being made that is not put before council, so there will never be a record. So in the event that there is some catastrophic event or just someone says, I'm not happy with this, there's no way to go back and look at a record to see officially what each council person's position was. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to my right? Okay. Moving to the center. Anyone in the center? Don't all jump up at once. Moving over to the left. Anyone from the left? You can come around front if you want to.
Hello, my name is Danny. I live on 4th Street. I'm here at this meeting, kind of an update from last month when some of our residents came out to talk about the possible sale of Capital Region Water. Just wanted to follow up again on that. It's almost been 2 months since we found out about that, and there's been very little opportunity for the public to get more information about what's going on. There have been a couple comments to the press, but we don't know when we'll get to weigh in as a citizenry about this. We don't know really anything about what's going on, and I feel since the application deadline has ended by now, I feel pretty confident that the companies that apply know more about this than the the public of Harrisburg does. And that seems wrong to me. So here again to ask, when will we know more about this, and when will we get to speak up in a meeting dedicated to it? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else to my left? Mayor, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I would strongly support a public meeting to discuss the stormwater fee and other issues. I think it would be appropriate for council to potentially organize such a meeting. I think it's a very complicated and important conversation, and we should talk about it. And I know that I believe CRW has reached out to Council President in an effort to try and schedule it. So
yes, I think we are looking at dates.
I just want you to know I'm all for it.
In October.
I also want to note for the record, no decision has been made to sell Capital Region Water. All the city has been doing is doing due diligence during this comment period, which is currently active and open on the stormwater. I'd love to have a longer form conversation about it. I'm committed to trying to get us a plan that works for cleaning up the Susquehanna River and the Chesapeake Bay. But it's a longer conversation that we all should have, and if we can get it on the agenda, I will be happy to also help try and circulate word of when the meeting is.
Okay, very good. Before I close out public comment, any other further public comment before I move on? All right, moving on to approval of the minutes. Council members, any changes or deletions to the special legislative session minutes of August 13th, 2019? Hearing none, minutes will stand as approved. Moving on to reports of committees, there are none. Moving on to ordinances for first reading, Bill 5 of 2019. Will you go ahead and read that into record?
Yep, Bill 5 of 2019 was moved by Mr. Majors, seconded by Ms. Green. It's an ordinance vacating and striking from the official map of the city of Harrisburg various unnamed paper streets within the block bounded by Harris Street, North 7th Street, Boyd Street, and Wallace Street, Boyd Street between Wallace Street and North 7th Street, and Cowden Street between Boyd and Raleigh Street, pursuant to Chapter 3-109 of the codified ordinances of the city of Harrisburg.
This will be placed in Public Works. Moving on to Bill 6 of 2019.
Bill 6 of 2019 was moved by Mr. Major, seconded by Ms. Green. It's an ordinance vacating and striking Shannon Street between South 10th Street and Salmon Street from the official map of the city of Harrisburg pursuant to Chapter 3-109 of the codified ordinances of the city of Harrisburg.
This will also be placed in Public Works. Moving on to Bill 7 of 2019.
Bill 7 of 2019 was moved by Mr. Major, seconded by Ms. Green. It's an ordinance to technically amend and update the codified ordinances of the city of Harrisburg to conform with 2018 legislative acts adopted by the City Council regarding Part 3 of Title 9 of the codified ordinances of the City of Harrisburg entitled Municipal Waste, Recycling, and Composting Code, to provide severability and repeal of all prior inconsistent city ordinances and to supplement the appendix of the codified ordinances of the City of Harrisburg with a rental, collection, and disposal rate schedule for large sanitation containers used for construction and demolition waste, residential waste, and the farm shell.
This will also be placed in Public Works. Moving on to Bill 8 of 2019.
Bill 8 of 2019 was moved by Mr. Major, seconded by Ms. Green. It's an ordinance amending Chapter 6-311.2 entitled Contaminating Water Supply, Maintaining Well of the codified ordinances of the City of Harrisburg to allow city-owned non-potable water supply wells to be used for the city comfort facilities within the city parks.
This will be placed in Public Works. Moving on to ordinances for amendment, there are none. Moving on for ordinance for final passage, there are none. Moving on to resolutions, Resolution 54, 2019 has been withdrawn by the mayor. Moving on to Resolution 55 of 2019.
Resolution 55 of 2019 was moved by Mr. Madsen, seconded by Ms. Bowers. It's a resolution authorizing the City of Harrisburg to enter into an easement agreement with Greenworks Development LLC for the purpose of installing 3 bollards in the public right-of-way in front of Midtown 2 Educational Building along the north side of Raleigh between Susquehanna and 3rd Street in the City of Harrisburg.
That's going to be placed in Community and Economic Development. Moving on to Resolution 56 of 2019.
Resolution 56 of 2019 was moved by Ms. Green, seconded by Ms. Daniels. It's a resolution reappointing Mr. Brian J. Ostello to serve on the City of Harrisburg Audit Committee.
That would place the Administration Committee. Moving on to Resolution 57 of 2019.
Resolution 57 of 2019 was moved by Mr. Major, seconded by Ms. Daniels. It's a seconded by Ms. Green. It's a resolution approving the disposition of surplus equipment by the Bureau of Vehicle Management.
This will be placed in Public Works. Moving on to Resolution 58 of 2019.
Resolution 58 of 2019 was moved by Ms. Green, seconded by Ms. Daniels. It's a resolution confirming the appointment of Nelva V. Wright to serve as a member of the Board of Directors of the Susquehanna Area Regional Airport Authority, SARA.
This will be placed in the Administration Committee. Moving on to Resolution 59 of 2019.
Resolution 59 of 2019 was moved by Ms. Bowers, seconded by Mr. Madsen. It's a resolution authorizing the City of Harrisburg to negotiate and enter into a master license agreement with Salco Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless for the use of certain city property for the installation of wireless communications equipment.
This will be placed in Building and Housing. Moving on to Resolution 60 of 2019.
Resolution 60 of 2019 was moved by Ms. Bowers, seconded by Mr. Madsen. It's a resolution approving the disposal or donation of certain property owned by the City of Harrisburg, which has exhausted its useful life for the city operations or has nominal value or no value or less value than the disposal costs.
This will be placed in Building and Housing. Moving on to Resolution 61 of 2019.
Resolution 61 of 2019 was moved by Ms. Bowers, seconded by Mr. Madsen. It's a resolution ratifying an agreement between the City of Harrisburg and Link Computer Corporation for the purpose of providing software to support the city's agreement with the Borough of Steelton.
This will be placed in Building and Housing. Moving on to Resolution 62 of 2019.
Resolution 62 of 2019 was moved by Ms. Green, seconded by Ms. Daniels. It's a resolution reappointing Mr. Alex Reber to serve on the City of Harrisburg Audit Committee.
This will be placed in the Administration Committee. Moving on to Resolution 63 of 2019.
Resolution 63 of 2019 was moved by Mr. Major, seconded by Ms. Green. It's a resolution ratifying the submission of a grant application, execution of a grant agreement with the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection for the purpose of replacing 2 diesel-powered bulk collection trucks.
This will be placed in Public Works. Moving on to Resolution 64 of 2019.
Resolution 64 of 2019 was moved by Mr. Madsen, seconded by Ms. Bowers. It's a resolution ratifying the submission of a grant application to PA Walkworks to fund design work for the City of Harrisburg's Urban Meadow Extension Project.
This will be placed in Community and Economic Development. Moving on to Resolution
19 was moved by Ms. Green, seconded by Ms. Daniels. It's a resolution recommending the reappointment of Mr. Wayne S. Martin to serve on the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission for a 2-year term.
This will be placed in Administration Committee. Moving on to Resolution 66 of 2019.
Resolution 66 of 2019 was moved by Ms. Daniels, seconded by Ms. Green. It's a resolution authorizing the city to negotiate and enter into a professional services agreement with Melissa Snyder for the purpose of serving as the event coordinator for the Art Fest of Greater Harrisburg for 2020.
This will be placed in Parks and Recreation Committee. Moving on to Resolution 67 of 2019.
Resolution 67 of 2019 was moved by Ms. Green, seconded by Ms. Daniels. It's a resolution ratifying an agreement between the Pennsylvania Historic Museum, PHMC, and the City of Harrisburg, providing for the transfer of the Harrisburg City Archives to the care, custody, and control of the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission.
This will be placed in Administration Committee. Moving on to Resolution 68 of 2019.
Resolution 68 of 2019 was moved by Mr. Major, seconded by Ms. Green. It's a resolution ratifying a contribution agreement number 08A804 between the City of Harrisburg and the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation in the amount of $50,000 for Hurst Street sidewalk reconstruction and ADA compliance as part of the PennDOT Hurst Street Improvement Project.
This will be placed in Public Works. Moving on to Resolution 69 of 2019.
Resolution 69 of 2019 was moved by Ms. Green, seconded by Ms. Daniels. It's a resolution appointing Ms. Tamia Q. Green to serve on the Environmental Advisory Council.
This will be placed in Administration Committee. Moving on to old business, council members. Any old business?
I do. And this goes back to the question from the resident regarding the city exploring the sale of Capital Region Water. So you mentioned that the process is still open, but to his point, on the website, the acquisition document says the submittal deadline was yesterday, September 16th at 5 p.m. So do we have an idea of, is there any information that can be shared with the public regarding number of submissions? Because again, this is something that not many had notice of prior to it being announced. So like I said, everyone's very interested in this. So is there any information that can be shared at this point, or do we have to wait for for a council to hold a meeting to get more information?
I don't have an update as of Friday, but I do have an update that as of last week, we had 2 companies submit their credentials and for their interest. And so we have not had those meetings, and they would be scheduled as determined in the calendar that was posted online. But if it's possible that others came in at the last minute, and I would have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
So there will be at least 2 interviews.
Okay. And then the process for the public, because again, it was sort of, it was just people were made aware of it, and then we have a lot of questions. I still have a lot of faith in Capital Region Water and the job that they're doing, and a lot of concerns about this as a potential sale. We all know that our stormwater and our public infrastructure needs a lot of work. That is no fault of necessarily anyone sitting here. That goes to, as we all know, decades of deferred maintenance on our public infrastructure. So at some point, we all have to address it. I understand your concerns, but I don't necessarily feel like, as what was said, was that we're getting enough information. The public's not getting enough information about this process. So, as Chair of Public Works, I'm committed to holding meetings, but I just want to understand.
I'll try and start it, and if Neil wants to. So all we're doing is we are in an information gathering mode. I call it a due diligence mode, in an effort to bring as many people to the table as possible to discuss what is at least initially going to be a comment on the open comment period for the stormwater fee. We have not we are not recommending or even close to recommending that we begin the process of exploring a sale. Were we to feel that that would be a path to go on, there would be much public discussion, many meetings, and it's just way premature to even say we're heading in that direction. I will also note we are, in addition to the comment period, so the 2 driving factors, we have a comment period open on the stormwater fee, which is a conversation we need to have and affects a lot of people, and hopefully we can, this can be partly a spur to have people come out and join the conversation. Also, we have received a draft agreement from the ICA, which I know Council is aware of, but which we're just beginning to digest, and that is going to require our analysis and discussion and collective response. Among other aspects of that agreement is a call to explore the potential privatization of assets. That has been in every Act 47 plan and every recommendation that we've ever received all the way along since from the strong plans adoption forward. In order to properly formulate a response to that, I think it's important that we do our due diligence and we understand what that means. And I will note, and I said this to the media, the last time we explored the potential privatization of an asset with regard to sanitation, we came back very strongly against the privatization of that asset. And that exploration of that process actually led us to make changes that were beneficial to the public. So there is no decision to move forward with a privatization of the water. There was a decision to make sure that we were as informed as possible so that we could both respond to the ICA, respond to CRW, and make recommendations to the public. So I see it as a good faith due diligence information gathering. And rather than do it behind closed doors, I actually thought we were being transparent in creating a process. Because if you don't create a process, then what happens is, lobbyists have backdoor conversations, there's different people pushing for different things. Rather than do any of that, I wanted to have a straightforward process, and we will let you know exactly who is coming in for a conversation and when they're coming in. I am, we're listening. CRW has been invited to participate in those interviews. We'd like it to lead to a better understanding of sort of where we are. So just due diligence and information gathering. I think the more information we have, the better we can make decisions as a community.
Okay.
Any other questions? Any other old business? Hearing none, any new business? Just want to announce, per comment before, we've invited Capital Region Water. We were looking at dates in October. It has not been confirmed, but mostly that will take place on a legislative session day. So as soon as we have something confirmed, we will be sure to inform the public. I do also want to announce that we will have 2 work sessions coming up over the next 2 weeks. The first on Tuesday, September 24th. The second on Tuesday, October 1st. Of note, you saw that there was lots of resolutions introduced. We will look to formulate a schedule over those 2 work sessions to address those pieces of legislation. However, we will also have, as part of the work session on October 1st, my favorite time of year for the budget time frame is the mid-year fiscal report that will be presented by the administration. So that will take place on October 1st. Any other new business, council members? Here none, can I get a motion for?
Mr. Chairman, just one other announcement. As a reminder, the Harrisburg Intergovernmental Cooperation Authority's next meeting is next Wednesday, September 25th at 4 p.m. at the Temple University in Harrisburg downtown.
So just confirm, so the ICA will have a meeting, you said next Wednesday?
Next Wednesday, the 25th at 4 p.m.
at Temple University?
At Temple University.
Okay.
So,
may I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second?
I second.
Okay. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.